Everyone, welcome to Music Matters. We're here to talk to the fabulous Stuart Coupe, who I'll introduce to you in a moment. I clearly believe there is something in the Launceston water. I have the privilege in my life of working for another Taswegian, a Mr. Michael Chugg, who some of you will know, and if you don't, you can Google. And if you don't know Stuart Coupe, you can also Google, because you're about to know him very, very well after this interview. But I have to ask, is there something in the Launceston water? Because seriously, it has given us two of the most fantastic self-made entrepreneurs to ever come out of the Australian music industry. So I really do question that. Also, Stuart is a dedicated Swans fan, which is a fabulous thing. I used to work at Fox Studios for many years, and I'd always be driving past early in the morning when the boys were out there on the grass out the front doing all their exercise regime. It was wonderful because the traffic would always stop. It was congested along this tiny laneway leading into Fox Studios in Sydney, Australia. But no one was congested in their cars or anything. They were just going slow to watch all the Swans people doing their fabulous football exercises. It was a sight, ladies, to behold. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you in our Music Matters program. And please, everyone, don't forget, if you can do anything to help any musos right now, please do. This, I'm dating it because we are in the pandemic, but in the future, fine. But whatever you can do, please, whether it's merchandising, whether it's buying something online, streaming, whatever, please support the music, the live music scene as much as you can. Without further ado, I would like to introduce this gentleman, Stuart Coupe. Stuart has done, he's done more than I could ever have done in my entire life. I remember in my first year of working with Michael Chugg. Michael Chugg's a very noisy human being, and I mean this really politely. He also had Michael Gudinski as his business partner, and Michael Gudinski was also a very noisy human being. Michael Gudinski, I love you. And then there was Frank Stavala, who is also a business partner of Michael Chugg's, and also a fabulously noisy human being. And then there is Sam Riggy, who was a business partner of all those chaps, and he too was a really, really noisy human being. And then there was Robbie Williams in the early days, a drummer from Supernaut, who became also their partners. And so I lived in a very, very noisy environment with a lot of guys who had a lot of egos, God bless them all, and who taught me so much, all of them. But God, it was noisy. And then one day, out of the blue, this guy comes in, and I'm permanently on the phone. That's what I did for a living. I was permanently organising stuff on the phone. So this guy walks in, and he's really quiet. And I'm absolutely gobsmacked because I'm on the phone and Chugg's yelling out this and, yelling out that, and someone else is yelling something else out. And this guy just walks past me like a church mouse going in to see Chugg. And I'm thinking, this is wonderful. There's someone else like me who's quiet. Anyway, the meeting goes ahead. The door gets closed quietly behind. Normally the doors are slammed, right? But this is a closed, silent door. The meeting proceeds for 30 or 45 minutes, and it's really quiet. There's no yelling. There's no jumping on desks or chairs or smashing of anything or blaspheming. Then the meeting, the door opens. It's concluded. And this gentleman turns around really quietly, shakes Michael Chugg's hand. Michael is actually speaking in the same tone as the gentleman, so it's all quiet and all hush-hush. And I'm still on the phone organising a venue here and a tour here and a international act there and whatever. And I'm like, my God. Anyway, this gentleman slowly and quietly, like a church mouse, exits, right? And I turn around, I get off the phone, I turn around to Chugg and I say, Michael, who the hell was that? And he said, well, you haven't met him. And I said, no, I haven't. I need to know who he is. I said, he's just quiet like me, and I want to be like him. And he said to me, it's Stuart Coupe. And I look at Michael, because I've just started in the industry, and he says to me, well, Stuart Coupe, he's a journalist. He's quite incredible. He does everything. You're going to get to meet him. He's a promoter. He managed all these great bands, And I'm like, oh, my God, I never knew. And he said, it's all right. You'll get to work with him, I promise you. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the quiet gentleman that changed my life many years ago, Mr. Stuart Coupe. Woo!
Thank you, Kathy. How are you doing?
Good.
I don't know where to start. My absolute pleasure. Sorry, what was that?
I said, I don't know where to start. You've done so much. You've been a journalist, you've been an author, and you still are an author and still are a journalist. You've had a record store, you've had a music label, you've managed, oh my God, two of the most amazing acts this country has ever produced, and they're still going strong today. You've been a promoter. I'm very jealous because you actually did The Clash. I never got to do that. And you're also a radio presenter and a crime fiction writer. The list goes on. Can we tackle this bit by bit? Can you tell us the journalist side of you? What made you, as a 15-year-old drinking that fabulous creative water in Launceston, want to write?
Look, I don't know, Kathy, to be honest with you. First and foremost, I think that everything that's driven me over all of these years is just being a music fan. I mean, when I go back to all of those things that you mentioned I've done, with the exception, obviously, of the crime fiction stuff, which we can get to later, but everything's been driven by just loving music and wanting to express that enthusiasm to other people. So when I started writing, I think it was just because I loved music, and I listened to music as much as I possibly could back on a little crystal radio in my parents' home in Launceston. Those things you used to attach to the phone, and you could pick up, radio stations on the mainland, as we continue to call everyone who doesn't come from Tasmania. They live on the mainland. And I just wanted to express that enthusiasm. So I decided that I was going to write about the records and songs that impacted on me, and try and convey my enthusiasm and my excitement for music to other people. And so there was nothing more or less complicated about it than that. I didn't really know how to write. I mean, one of the best bits of advice I ever received was from another journalist, a very great Australian journalist, Annie Burton, who sadly is no longer with us. But I remember Annie Burton said, just write like you talk. And I realized that, in fact, right from the very start, as a 15, 16-year-old, I'd been writing like I talked. There's nothing overly complicated about it. There's nothing deep. I'm a rabid, enthusiastic music fan trying to convey to you, the person who reads or listens to me on the radio these days, or comes to concerts that I promoted, my enthusiasm. And so that's it. And I just slowly, I read a lot. I think one of the keys to being a good writer and a good journalist is to read other people. And when I started, I was inspired by a guy called Rob Smythe, who was the music writer for Nation Review. And I unashamedly, I wanted to be like Rob Smythe. So basically what I did for the first couple of years was what's kind of now known as plagiarism. I effectively copied his work, but I tried not to copy it. But I realized that I was copying it because I was so taken by the way that he conveyed his enthusiasm.